Welcome to another edition of Labor TV, brought to you by the Cowlitz-Wahkiakum Central Labor Council. This is the show where union members and working people can come together and tell their side of the story. Today we have with us our friend Rick Von Rock, retired AWPPW 153, Jeffrey Washburn with the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, UA 26, previous council president, and myself, Kyle Mackey. I'm the current council president. Today, we're going to go over a couple things. We're going to talk about, first of all, we're going to talk about what the Cowlitz-Wahkiakum Central Labor Council is. The CLC, as we like to call it, it's a place where all the union members in the two counties can come together once a month, usually, and talk about our issues, talk politics. We go over current events, what's going on with each local, with negotiations. We see how we can bring each other together and help each other. We also host movie nights and socials. We do a Labor Day picnic once a year on Labor Day. What else have we been doing lately, Rick? Can you think of anything?
Well, definitely, as you look at what you've been doing over the holidays, how you've raised funds, which has been very important. We encourage other groups to work towards the betterment of working people. We take issues on that, and I think it's been very positive.
We've also done some rallies and some informational pickets. I think Jeff's been involved in a few of those, since before EGT and during the EGT battle and some other things, and things have been going pretty good lately. I mean, wouldn't you say, Jeff?
Well, they've somewhat stabilized. That EGT was definitely a harpoon that hurt a lot, for the building and construction trades. It was a period of time when hadn't been any work, there wasn't any, and then a job of pretty good size shows up and the local workforce doesn't get invited.
I think you and the building trades and the labor council, I think we've done a good job of holding rallies and pickets and these things and trying to educate the public on the importance of union labor in our community and what we bring back to the economy. And I know I've learned a lot from you and Rick and everybody else. I'm just going to read off what the unions that the CLC consists of, the jobs. Firefighters, nurses, chemical workers, woodworkers, pipe fitters, painters, longshoremen, machinists, pulp and paper workers, letter carriers, hotel and restaurant workers, teachers, grocery and retail workers, public employees, retired union members, and there's more than that. Each of these unions appoints delegates to come to the Labor Council and represent their local. Can you think of anything else that you want to add on what the Labor Council is, Rick?
I think it's not only a thing that benefits workers, but it's also an organization that tries to get involved in the political things that affects everybody in our community. I think it shows that we're concerned about the citizens in our county. We're concerned about the wages and benefits they make, as well as all the other issues that come through a political agenda.
Yeah, I think politics is the main purpose of the Labor Council. But ever since I started with the Labor Council, I've tried to take a step back and focus on organizing and getting all the unions involved and bridging the gap between labor and the community, trying to get the community to understand more of what unions are about and what the Labor Council is about. Politics is always going to be important, but a lot of people are turned off by the very word. They don't want anything to do with it. So I've tried to find other alternatives to get people involved and get them to care about the things that are going on around town. Jeff, what do you think? Anything more on the CLC you want to share?
Well, following along those lines, like you said, we hadn't had a picnic, a Labor Day picnic for quite a while around here, and that was something when I was when I was a president, and I was thinking if there's going to be one thing, I'd like to try and kind of get everybody kind of back together, because it seems like Many years ago when the unions were doing well, there was more of them and everybody was kind of doing activities with the union. Labor Day was a big holiday, and it was about labor. It wasn't necessarily just the end of the summer officially. So that, we also thought about trying to do things not just once a year, but throughout maybe the year, continuously to try and keep our members really in touch with the community and seeing if there was anything that one area might need that everybody might rally to give them help with. And that's kind of what this is about. Unions are our communities.
Yeah, when we talk about politics, and it's obviously it's a big deal with us, we usually get associated with the Democratic Party. And a lot of people out there think that we are joined at the hip with the Democratic Party. And it's my view, my opinion, that we are not, solidified and concrete in bed with the Democratic Party. We are labor, and we support candidates and ideals and policies that will support our members and working people. That's my view. And we welcome Democrat, Republicans, Independents, anybody to our meetings that are running for office, that want to sit down with us and answer questions. And we can't just be polarized like Congress. Right, Rick?
Absolutely. I'm totally on board with you, and you pretty much explained exactly what labor is and what they're about. They're about citizens, they're about working people, and all people are from different parties. So anyone that wants to support labor, as you mentioned, Republican, Democrat, Independent, we're there to help them, because people are the things that count.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to stick to the issues that affect labor. These issues, I don't even want to get into it, all these issues that divide us. One of them I'm going to mention is gun rights, for example. You go to the Longshore Hall and 95% of us have a gun, go out hunting, do whatever. And a lot of people look at that as a reason to vote one way or another, when what we do on the council is we pick candidates that are going to represent working people, and that's important for people to know. Let's go ahead and move on now. Our last show, we went over Boeing and the minimum wage, and I think there was a couple things we missed with the minimum wage. Rick, did you want to go over a couple things that we might have missed?
Yes, I do. I mean, of late, there's been a HB, House Bill 2672, that is encouraging the state of Washington to raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour in the next 3 years. And a lot of people have different opinions on it, but in order to make an informed decision, you have to have some statistical data. And this is just in the state of Washington. I've looked up some information, and it shows that there are 551,000 wage earners in the state of Washington that make $12 or less. That's quite a bit. And as we're looking at the current minimum wage, it shows that 85% of the people that make minimum wage are 20 years or older. So this pretty much disallows the thought that it's only teenagers. That's 85%. And of that, 53% are working women trying to raise a family. And I'm sure any of you that make minimum wage or less would certainly benefit from an increase. Not only will you benefit, but so will the community. Because by earning more, you're able to spend more. By earning more, our tax dollars that now are subsidizing you in one way or another can be cut, so this money can be used for improvements within the state. So there's a lot of things going on, and a lot of people don't realize that by increasing the minimum wage, this enables everyone to work together, everyone to earn a little more, so more can be produced and taken care of within the state.
Yeah, when you mention everybody, making a little bit more, I think that we've been criticized as labor as being classified as a bunch of, socialists, whatever you want to call us, that we want everybody to make the same wage. But that's not true. We want we want wages for all workers to be lifted up because they're not where they should be. The income inequality in this country is a huge problem, as we've talked about, and wages from the minimum wage on up need to be raised to where they should be with productivity and all the other things that we've benefited from that we not necessarily have benefited from for years as workers, but the elite and the rich and the corporations have been, going to town for a while.
Well, the big talk now is this income disparity. The president, his State of the Union message, talking to the private industry out there, give America a raise. It's kind of basic economics when people can't afford to live on what they're making and actually have to be subsidized in many instances, to feed their children at school and various other things to feed themselves, even when they're working full time. That's kind of a problem. It's hard to get a robust economy really going when that's what everybody's working at, those kind of wages. That's why collective bargaining, and like you said, not everybody's going to make the same wage. The industry you're in, if you can group together and collectively bargain, you can help. That's probably one of the main things, collective bargaining, more union organizing to help bring wages up, and probably a little bit more of a fair tax system too, that actually extracted money somewhere other than out of our hard-working pockets to help, make sure everything actually gets done. Because there's other things they could do that wouldn't hurt, people that really have a lot of money. And transaction taxes, perhaps at the, on Wall Street, small amounts. They make a lot of transactions. So there's just a lot of things, a couple of things that would be really important. Union organizing and more of a fair tax system would help the income disparity. And what we're talking about, everybody's wages going up.
Yeah, things are pretty, in my opinion, pretty messed up in this country right now. I think a lot of people would agree about that. And you got to start somewhere. You can't force Congress to do their job. You can't force them to fix things at the federal level. But we're doing things at the local level in the cities and the counties and the port districts and this and that. And it starts locally, and you got to get out there on the street sometimes and hold a sign and do different things. And then it spreads to the state, and then eventually Congress and the president will get the message, and things can start changing. But you got to start as an individual, as a group, as a union sometimes, and that's where it starts.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think as we're looking at responsibility, the people that we elect to represent us need to understand what we really want. And unfortunately, a lot of times when they get to Congress, when they get to the Senate, they kind of forget about the citizens who voted them in. So it is our responsibility as citizens to hold them accountable. Why aren't they doing the job that we elected them to do? So we have an election year coming up. So we got to hold this in mind. Which senator or which congressperson did or did not do what you elected him to do? They can be voted out. But we have to come together as a grassroots movement to hold these people responsible. If we just keep re-electing them, then don't expect any change.
Yeah, on the last show, I briefly mentioned our area newspaper, Daily News, and my disappointment with some of the things that I've read in there. And it's not the language that they use per se. It's more like, for example, they just printed an article on the raise of the minimum wage to $9.32 an hour. What the Daily News did was they went out and contacted the business community and the EDC and the Kelso downtowners, I think it was, and they got a lot of information from them, but they didn't bother to come and ask us, labor unions, who created the minimum wage. We fought for the minimum wage. And, how do we feel about that? Well, obviously, we think it's a good thing. We think it's going to help people, get them out of poverty. But I just wanted to clear that up. The news and some things we're going to get frustrated with a lot of the time, and we'd like to have more communication with them. And anything else on minimum wage, Jeff?
Well, the overall economy's just been so weak for the last 5 years, and it's hard to really get anything rolling. The governments are having a hard time collecting tax revenues to operate like they should. You know, I mean, our union organization, you know, we're based on man hours. When there's not a lot of construction out there like there has been in the past and it slows down, it makes it more difficult for us to operate too. Same scenario. You don't have as many people out there working and bringing money to you, so it's harder to keep things going. Some of these projects we're looking at, you know, we'll see if they come to fruition. These large projects where there's outside private money coming in and wanting to build things here, union is really going to be a big boon to our local economy, as opposed to doing it like they did that last time when I felt I was harpooned. There's going to be a lot of pickup trucks being sold if these jobs come to fruition in this area. A lot of cars, a lot of houses are going to be built. We're going to see these Costco's and these Olive Gardens, and all this stuff is going to really, and everything's going to work a lot better with more money coming in, especially if we can get a higher minimum wage. That's going to allow everybody, because these dollars, you know, if they're spent in town, which we should do to support our own local economy, it creates compounds on itself. And that's what the economy is all about locally. We can become really strong and have what we want, more parks too.
Yeah, local's good, union's better. Out of state, not good.
Not good.
Bringing people in that are going to take those monies back home with them.
Especially the
It's not
building
good.
trades. We pay for the training of our apprentices in the building and construction trades, which the pipe fitters, and I'm the president of the Building and Construction Trades Council from Longview and Kelso too. We have to have money that we collect from our members out of our paychecks to keep our schools and our training centers going. So when work gets slow, it gets a little tighter. We're looking forward to things getting a little better. We're going to be able to open up our training centers, make them a little better, way more opportunities for local people in school. And these are all science, technology, engineering, and math situations too. So yeah, if this private money comes and helps dump into the economy, I see a lot of things looking a lot better around here too. That'll really help. I know the businesses are really hurting and saying they can't pay this minimum wage thing, but I think once things really start rolling, they're going to have to pay more because people are going to go where the money is, and the money won't be there. So,
And like Rick's talked about before on the last show, it helps these businesses because people will have more money to spend, and they'll come and they'll shop in these shops, and it all works out. Let's go ahead and move on to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. A lot of people don't know what the heck the Trans-Pacific Partnership is. It's going on right now in the federal government, not just ours, but there's multiple countries involved. It's a trade agreement. If you ever heard or remember NAFTA, which was 20 years ago now, NAFTA was a deal between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, a trade deal. This trade deal is between the governments of the United States, Australia, Brunei, if I'm saying that correctly, Chile, Canada, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, and Vietnam currently. As far as we can tell, everything's being negotiated in secret. We have been reading some things that corporations are privy to the information. Their lobbyists might be involved in a lot of the negotiations, but it's very secretive. There's a move out there in Congress to try and fast track the entire agreement. What else can you tell me, Rick?
Well, as we look at what's coming through this TPP, it's kind of like looking what happened when NAFTA, even though we don't want to compare the two together, what happened in NAFTA, it's like TPP will be on NAFTA on steroids. We look at the situation when we see what happened with NAFTA. It's been in around about 20 years now. And since NAFTA was incorporated, which was just an agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, we've lost a net of 700,000 jobs. That's a net. We've gained some jobs, but overall we lost over 700,000 jobs, thus causing numerous manufacturing facilities to move out of our country here, take the jobs away that created family wage jobs, and take them overseas. And this is exactly what's going to happen with TPP, but even more so because there's more countries involved. And then in addition, there's certain parts of the agreement that's going to cause the countries where corporations decide to go and create these jobs to perhaps even be in violation themselves. An example, and I'll just give an example that I was given by reading this one article. We'll say hypothetically, this thing passes, which we all hope it doesn't, but say in Vietnam, manufacturers go over there and they create jobs for those people over there, and then they want to export the product over to this country. And it turns out that if, for some reason, the government over there and the people over there decide to increase benefits for their employees, the manufacturers can sue the government. They can sue the government in the extent that they're saying it will affect the expected profits. So because they have an expected profit, and if things change in the country, and the country wants to provide better living conditions for their employees, then that corporation can sue that government. Outlandish. It's just crazy that someone would make an agreement that had things like this in it. It's not only adversary to our country, but then again adversary to the country they go to.
Yeah, this is going to affect food or agricultural products, medicine, environmental protections, and the biggest one is probably workers' rights, because a lot of these corporations are going to go overseas and they're going to take advantage of these countries that don't have any worker protections, hardly at all. And you know, we can talk about trade and the benefits of trade all we want, but it's been proven over the last 20 years with NAFTA that it's not working out very good for working people at all. Jeff, we've talked, and I don't think anybody's an expert on this issue, but you can kind of see where we're going with this. It's bad news.
Well, it kind of goes back to the Ross Perot, the giant sucking sound. A lot of people said, well, yeah, they could do that, but they're not going to do that, just because we made this trade agreement that gave them a little bit of a wiggle room to pretty much move our industry out of this country. And yeah, well, of course they're going to take the easy route. If there's an easy path to make money, why work hard at it? If there's more wiggle room and there's more incentive to take our industry and put it somewhere else and try to make us buy it back, it's kind of a race to the bottom situation we're putting ourselves in. And I think it comes back to the fact that if they do show us a shred of morality and start throwing a lot of money back into this country, because if we are back to making things like we haven't been, because we basically sent it all away. If we can get back to some kind of a stabilization point and make things in this country where people can make living wage jobs that we can export, and we do that with some things still, but we need to make more of them. Boeing's a great example, but we need to do more of those things. Living wage jobs, we make things, we load them up on ships, we send them to other countries, and then they can send us things that we don't necessarily have, and get a robust trading going. But if they leave room for them to take advantage of worker rights or basically anything that's going to make profit for them, they're going to probably do it until they can't do it anymore.
I don't know if Boeing's the best example, Jeff.
Well, they manufacture, they don't take a raw product and just send it overseas so they can make it into something and send it back. I know that we do have basic issues with them, but the process, the fact that they're making something and people are making good wages working there, sure they have their struggles, but still that's kind of what we're really looking to do, is to take our resources, manufacture something here with it, put a bunch of people to work on some darn good jobs, and long term, this is things that'll be there and stabilize, because the country needs that anyway for just in its own defense. We don't necessarily need an army to protect everyone in the world, but we need to make sure our infrastructure is strong enough so that we just don't crumble if somebody comes in here. So,
I think the main thing to understand about the Trans-Pacific Partnership is that it's being negotiated in secret for a reason. They don't want the public to know what the heck is going on. And it's most people's belief that this deal, this trade deal, will take away from our democratic process, It'll take away the decision-making from our government and put it in the hands of a few, and the corporate interests. It's going to take away from our democracy. Let me say, Rick.
Absolutely. Not only our democracy, and certainly we're interested in that, but the democracy of any emerging country that's trying to develop a middle class. It will take away from that as well.
Okay, I think we've beat up the Trans-Pacific Partnership enough. Let's go on to something that I was always taught never to bring it up and never to bring it to the table. It's called right-to-work legislation. And for a long time, there hadn't been any movement on right-to-work. In 2012, I think it was the state of Indiana was the first one to pass right-to-work legislation. And I think it was last year that Michigan also passed. It had been 10 years before that since the last state. And what right-to-work is under federal law, unions must represent all workers covered by a contract, even if some of those workers are not members of the union and do not pay union dues for the union recognition. So, off the top of my mind, does that sound fair?
I think pretty much. It does pretty much embrace what right to work is about. And then you got to go a little further into right to work and see how it actually works or does not work for the workers in the state you happen to be a part of.
But does it sound fair for a union to have to represent a worker even though they're not paying for that representation?
No, absolutely not. It would be like someone getting hurt in a car accident. They're hurt, so they decide to go to an attorney. They need help from that attorney to get as many benefits as they can because of the accident. And then he tells the attorney, I'm not going to want to pay you for this. I want you to provide this service for me, get me as much money as you can, and yet I don't want to give you anything.
I should probably mention that the whole reason we're even bringing this up is because right to work is here now. It's on the move, and it was on I believe it was on the ballot in Oregon. Was it last year? And there's a bill that's in the works for Washington State. There's some movement on right to work now, and I want to educate as many people as I can in the public and union members on what this means for working people and for unions. And we obviously are going to be fighting it tooth and nail. It's not a good thing for anybody. I think I have some numbers here that in states with these laws, workers earn an average of $5,600 less a year than in non-right-to-work states. Most of these current states that are bringing up bills and this push for right to work are being sponsored by ALEC. It's a legislative, conglomerate of corporations and right-wing interests that are intent on busting unions, basically. They're bringing a lot of money to Washington and Oregon and these other states like Michigan and Indiana, and they're attacking unions head on. What do you think about right to work, Jeff?
Well, I think how many states are there that are right to work right now? I think it's 23, 24.
Yeah, 24.
We're right up on the halfway mark here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if it gets to the halfway mark, I think federally they can try and push for a national law on that, because it's just about a ratification of it. And no, it's not good for the worker. Yeah, I wish I could do my tax system like that, to where I could get all the benefits of living in the United States and just tell the IRS, hey, thanks for everything, but I don't see what I owe you. You're supposed to represent me no matter what. This is a free country, but this isn't a free country. Things do cost money as far as that goes. And for representation, that costs money too. I thought that there was still a certain amount that they would have to pay to cover representation, but they could opt out of the political, or at least what they think is a political portion, because they don't want their money to go to any political campaign that might support unions, or what they might think is not essential to their dues.
You brought up the good example of taxes, and we all pay taxes, but, and you said it's not a free country, but it is because we get a voice and a vote, and we elect officials to Congress and the state representatives, and that's what unions do. They're democratic as well. They're an extension of democracy. We vote on our officers every year in my local, and we trust that they're going to make the right decisions, and they're going to use those funds to represent us well, just like we hope to trust our Congress and our elected officials in the government. And you know, it costs money to run a union. There's arbitrations. There's what are the other costs? You know, running the office.
Well, yeah, I
paperwork.
mean, you have, you know, representing people in grievances. You have to have money to do that if you have to take it all the way up to arbitration. But if you can settle it before then, you have to negotiate a contract. That takes money. All that is expensive. And any other things, if you have committees that represent you in safety issues, in health and welfare issues, or any other issues that you have a concern with the company, all this takes money. So this is how some of it comes in. But as you mentioned over there, if it is right to work, you don't have to pay any union dues. There is a difference. So when it comes to right to work, you can be part of an organized structure if you choose to be, or not. So all these other people that say maybe half of them are paying dues and the other half are not, and the half that are paying the union dues are subsidizing those that are not. And another interesting thing about right to work, and I looked up some information on it, we all look at wages, and that's a very important part. And in right to work states, even those that have unions in them get paid less. It's just the nature of the makeup of right to work. And in addition, we look at the wages, but I have some information here showing the rate of employer-sponsored health insurance, which is ESI, is 2.6 percentage points lower in right to work states. And then if you look at the rate of employer-sponsored pensions, 4.8 percentage points lower in right to work states. So that's money issues. But there's another issue that's probably even more important and should be, and that is health care and accidents. It says the U.S. Department of Labor reported that 19 of the 25 states with the highest workers' fatality rates were right to work states. So all these things are involved in right to work states and some of the effects that happen when you're part of a right to work state.
Yeah, I was also doing my homework last night online and researching some of these figures on right to work, and I found a lot of the similar numbers that even though pay and benefits, pensions, health and welfare is just a few percentage points below a non-right to work state, workplace deaths was the one that caught my eye. 36% higher in right to work states. And that goes to show you that safety is not the employer's #1 concern when there's no union there to push safety on them. 36% higher. I forgot to mention that right to work, a little more background, came out of the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947. And I think as we go along with the show, we'll get into the Taft-Hartley Act, but it was probably the most detrimental act that ever came out of Congress affecting labor unions. You know, the economy, everybody's talking about the economy, are we improving or not? We went through a rough recession there. I think that right to work is being debated because, you know, is this going to create a boost for these states if they implement right to work? Is it going to improve the economy? What do you think, Jeff?
I definitely don't think it will improve the economy. I think that just when the economic times are down like that, you know, that's basically how the Republicans want to fix everything. Right to work, lower the minimum wage, pull back you know, tighten up, tighten your belt so tight, even as the government, where nobody wants to put anything out there. It's, you know, it takes money to get people working. You've got to be able to make something and then provide wages, and usually you have to borrow money a lot of times, you know, to make it all work all the time. So.
Yeah, when you look at the last 100 years of what unions have done in this country and what the power of collective bargaining can do, you will start to understand that that is what will improve our economy, not these laws that are going to bust up unions and do away with unions. If workers have a say, pay, benefits, all these other things that we love today, you know, those are what's going to improve the economy, unions. I just wanted to wrap up Right to Work with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. "In our glorious fight for civil rights, we must guard against being fooled by false slogans such as right to work. It is a law to rob us of our civil rights and job rights. Its purpose is to destroy labor unions and the freedom of collective bargaining by which unions have improved wages and working conditions for everyone. Whenever these laws have been passed, wages are lower, job opportunities are fewer, and there are no civil rights. We do not intend to let them do this to us. We demand this fraud be stopped. Our weapon is our vote." MLK Jr. said that in 1961. And here we are, what, 50 years later, still dealing with it. Anything to add to that, Rick?
No, I think that pretty well summarizes it very well.
Up next, we're gonna transition to we're gonna get some guests on the show here that are gonna talk about the school levies after a short break. Okay, today we have some guests joining us from the Kelso School District. We have Rob McGregor, the superintendent of the Kelso schools. From the Citizens Campaign to Vote Yes in Kelso, we have Dot Joslin. And over here we have Suzanne Cusick with the Longview School District, superintendent. And today we're going to be talking about why everyone should vote yes on the upcoming school levies vote on February 11th. And Dot, if you want to start out and tell us what the Citizens Group is trying to push forward and how you guys are going out there and trying to get people to vote yes.
Okay, well, the district is very limited in what they can do as far as putting out the word about what the levy is about. Basically, they only get one publication. And so what we try to do is we just try to alert the community that the levy is coming up. And so one of the things we do is we send out a postcard to voters within the district. And then another thing that we do is we have the signs. We have blue and white signs, and it basically just says, you know, to vote, because what we're trying to do is not just publicize our levy, but other districts' levies as well, because we're all in the same boat. And then third thing that we do is we have a walk in certain neighborhoods on a day, just to alert, again, bring awareness that we have a levy that's going to be up. And then a fourth thing that we do is we have some phone calling, because towards the end, you know, not always have people turn their ballots in and they just need a reminder. So we have a phone calling campaign for that as well.
Sounds pretty good. Mr. McGregor, did you want to talk about some of the details of Kelso's side?
Yes. I'd like to start off by making a distinction that Dot started to make, and I'll just make it on behalf of the viewers, and that is that as superintendents, we can't advocate which way a citizen should vote, but we can advocate the vote, and we can also give factual information about the levy, and so that's what I think is really important. Whereas a citizens group can urge people to vote one way or another. So, but this is a four-year levy. Our current four-year levy is due to expire at the end of 2014. We term this upcoming levy as a replacement levy because essentially that's what it's doing. It's replacing funds that go to basic services that include staff salaries, some staff salaries, maintenance, operations, those kinds of things. So it's no frills. We're not adding anything new here. It's just to kind of maintain the high-quality programs that we're currently able to provide for our students and their families. So again, 4-year levy, keeping it at about the same rate that this expiring levy is at.
So, Suzanne, is it about the same kind of program going on in Longview schools?
Most definitely, and I'll just start out by saying that our two levy co-chairs, Susie Kirkpatrick and CJ Nickerson, really wanted to be here today, but they ended up with some pretty significant schedule conflicts. And so, like Rob, I can only give factual information, but I would add to what Dot was sharing that our committee does very similar things. They do door knocking, distributing campaign materials that the district cannot do, making phone calls, and just a very dynamic effort on the part of citizens. Our levy, just like Kelso's, is a replacement levy. We actually have two. I'll explain the distinctions in a minute. We're asking for a very similar amount without an increase in the tax assessment for property owners. I think that's very significant. And the levy dollars comprise 22% of our general fund. So I always think of it as what would happen in our household if we lost 22% of our monthly income, and that's the kind of impact that it would have for Kelso and for Longview. One other piece that Rob and I are aware of is when districts like ours that are considered generally property poor as compared to King County, et cetera, we also qualify for something called levy equalization assistance. And in our case, that's approximately 2% more. So really, we're looking at a 24% loss if this doesn't pass. And I think for you, Rob, it's similar, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And ours, like the Kelso folks, provides additional teachers, support staff, administrators, and pays for all of our extracurricular activities, as well as helping to keep our buildings in good shape. That's the M&O levy. In Longview, we started a Tech and Capital, our TNC levy, 3 levies ago. And so this would be our third time to ask for a replacement for that. And that provides support for technology infrastructure and, again, making sure our buildings are maintained. And that, again, is also a replacement levy at about the same amount that the current one is.
I know during negotiations from a union aspect, class sizes was a huge discussion topic, and if this passes, do you think that that'll help out with the class sizes?
It will certainly help maintain what we have, and we always hope that we can find resources. Teachers and administrators want to have the smallest class size possible. Certainly, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where our class sizes might be if we aren't successful. But
yeah. So I think it just takes a simple majority now of 50%. Is that something that changed in recent years?
Yeah, that changed, and I think it was 2004 maybe. So it's pretty recent. This is only the second levy that Kelso's run that's subject to that new simple majority.
It makes it a little bit easier.
A little bit easier, takes some of the pressure off, but not so much that we're ever complacent.
Well, is there anything else you guys want to add to it?
I could chime in with something that might help with regard to this 60% or supermajority and the simple majority. We always refer to levies as for learning because that supports the day-to-day learning. And bonds, the situation that requires the 60%, bonds are really for building the big buildings. So those are much longer term commitments for the taxpayer. But these are levies, replacement levies.
I'd like to make one more little pitch, Kyle, and that is just that our board, and I'm sure that Longview board had a similar discussion, when getting ready to pass the resolution for the levy, which they're required to do, that determines the amount based on a rate. There was lots of good discussion. We could have used more revenue, and we could use more revenue. But it was important to the board, important to the citizens group, for us to be mindful of the fact that economic recovery has not occurred in Cowlitz County. And so in the interest of the voters, they kept things status quo. and that's important.
It's got to be a good balance, but we need this to
Right.
be a good thing. Just hopefully everybody turns out to vote February 11th and vote yes on Longview, Kelso, and whatever school district you're in. I want to thank everybody for being here, Dot and Rob and Suzanne,
Thank you, Kyle.
and you guys are doing good things.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.
Giving everybody a reminder to get out and vote in the special election on February 11th. Make sure you vote. And vote yes for the school levies. Kelso, Longview, whatever district you're in, it's all beneficial to teachers and students, and it improves our schools. If you want to contact us, you can email us at cow.wa.clc@outlook.com. You can visit us on Facebook. We just created a YouTube channel where you can view these shows. We're going to try to do them once a month. Our meetings, the Cowlitz-Wahkiakum Central Labor Council meetings, are once a month. They're the second Monday of the month at 5:30 p.m. at 536 Oregon Way. And they're open to any union member or union retiree that wants to come in and participate and see what's going on. And we'd love to have you there. Thanks for watching the show.